Española.
Okay.
You're not just a photographer.
Good. I trust you.
No, you do not.
No, I do.
Like Vic ruling
What? We're live? Okay. So, do I start? I start? Okay. Yeah, so hi everyone. I'm Wendy, so thank you so much for being here. I'm currently at my residency at Zaratan and I've been working on a book project called Something Like Memory. It's a conceptual artist book that blends personal journey entries, documentary photography, and AI-generated images. When I started this project, I thought I was going to make something more small and personal, almost like a visual diary, something about either memory or the way that we interpret memories, maybe even something about beauty. But as I arrived in Lisbon, the ice raids in Los Angeles started happening. That's where my family lives, and that's where I grew up, and it started escalating. So for those who don't know, like ICE is the Immigration and Customs enforcement. It's the U.S. agency tasked with enforcing a lot of the immigration laws. But over the years, it's become something much more violent and shadowy. It's a system that's designed to now disappear people. So today it functions like a domestic military force. It raids homes, it sets up checkpoints, pulls people over for nothing, detains them without trial. And those raids like changed my project completely as I started working on it and living here. I couldn't just make something introspective. I had to kind of respond to the violence happening back at home, even if my response wasn't very loud. Um, so every morning I would wake up to texts and videos from friends or family. And it was things like, are you okay? Or this is where the protest is happening today. You got to see what's going on. Like these neighborhoods are being affected. And I am about 5,000 miles away. So while people I love were being followed, detained, even deported, um, in LA and in the books here. So Something Like Memory, which is what it's called, became a counter archive, which it spread it kind of like a triptych. So it's a journal entry, it's a photograph and an AI generated image. So if I ever had a text or a memory, in the moment, I would take a photograph of where I was, I would write down my feelings, and then I would feed both the image and the description into an AI image machine, and it would generate a memory for me. And that's what we see in the book and in the images behind me. So a lot of the AI images can become a little strange, almost a little too real for me, but they do kind of flatten the nuance, which I became interested in. So kind of just like ICE databases, they reduce human lives and interaction into more like abstract categories. Some pages are printed in like a transparent vegetal paper. Others are stitched in like sleeves that are like this one here that I kind of just stitched together because I wanted to present something a little delicate and fragile. I needed the form to carry the same resistance as the subject as well. So a lot of clarity came not from the planning, but from the making. I would write, then photograph, then experiment with AI until something clicks. So some images were wrong, but they felt right. They mirrored the kind of disorientation that comes with memory under pressure. Creating this work felt like making room for me in terms of like grief and contradiction. So things that don't always have place in public, but live quietly in people all the time. So that's what I wanted to embody. Any questions? All right. Or we could just watch the slideshow too. So.
Can you talk a little bit more about the cover image and some of the frames that you have that are super zoomed in? Almost a little bit more like ethereal images.
Yeah. So the cover, The cover is a lot more about like fogginess, and I think I wanted to talk about that a little bit more here. I just wanted to create like a fogginess of like what memory can be. We can misremember a lot of things. And some of the images that I do have, I'm assuming you're talking about this one. So these are like a little more transparent,
Fading.
fading, and it kind of, and there's like a dreamy landscape behind it. And that really is to kind of give like a weird transparency or a weird blurriness to memories. I also think that AI in general now is making our memories even more a little blurry. And there was the first wave of AI of like tagging our pictures, asking us or telling us what days to remember, like this time last year. But it's taken it a step further now, I think, and then I'm interested in that blurriness that happens. So that's kind of the reason I used that paper. Did that answer your question? Great. Anything else, or we're good to go?
I wonder, like this interaction with AI was not was planned, but then things happen, the present happened, and the project slightly changed. You have already worked with AI previously. Is there something you have learned that you will transfer to your future project?
That's a good question. I think like so some of there are things that I did learn. So for those who don't know, I work in AI professionally as well. So I do consulting and a lot of AI for tech companies as it emerges. And some of the things that I learned are is just how inaccurate they are and how unreliable AI is and how
Yet.
Yet, yes. And there's a lot of hallucinations that it does and that it takes. And so those hallucinations, when it hallucinates, it's a little interesting to see the images it creates. And that's kind of a part that I find interesting that I would like to continue to work with. Right now, a lot of my artwork before this was creating very specific images with AI. It wasn't so much letting AI interpret and take it. I was more in control of a lot of the imagery I was trying to make. Um, so I do feel like with the things that I learned, I liked kind of just letting it kind of run and decide on its own what it thinks I'm saying and kind of just letting that speak for itself. If that makes sense.
It does.
Can you talk a bit more about this idea of AI appropriating the images and how you're editing that sense that I'm getting of appropriation
Of
between the AI and where this all comes from?
will come in. So do you mean more like how I would pick the images or
I'm interested in what this tool that you're using, AI, that essentially is appropriating the images to kind of change their meaning
yeah,
somewhat, and how you're dealing with editing that shifting meaning
I
in the
see
appropriation.
of
So
it.
I'm kind of making a connection there, and this idea of identity that you're bringing alongside it.
Yeah, it's so the way that I would basically so I would take the journal entry I had. I'll take my original photo that I took, feed that into Midjourney, which is like an AI generated image generator, and from there it would give me like four different images to choose from. Some of them were like super inaccurate. Like I think if we see here, there's some where like that one, like it interprets one of my um, journal entries as being like Asian American at a graduation party, which is not at all, like what I was trying. So I felt like that was a little bit strange, and that was specifically for
Yeah, maybe the question is somewhere on that level. Where do you find the boundary of inaccurateness in AI, and how far are you taking it, and what's your path going
yeah.
forward?
I think some of it would be like this kind. When I look at an image, I would be like, this kind of feels right. This kind of feels like what it would look like if I remembered back. So I would select more photos like that, as opposed to something where it was completely inaccurate. And The reason for that is because I felt like it would become almost like a little more silly and like ridiculous, and I wanted to preserve the eeriness of like almost right but not quite. There's something wrong. So I was looking more for images that were like almost there, but something was off. So I was mostly not something that's completely like left field and totally like, oh, they got it, this got it totally wrong. I didn't want it to really highlight or put too much emphasis on like, look how wrong AI can be. I wanted it to be kind of like, look how AI can kind of be accurate, but something's still missing. So those are the images that I kind of gravitated towards.
Something like memory. Right?
Something like memory, yeah, exactly. So just like that, yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
It was almost about asking, actually, the question is very close to Nuno, but do you feel that by entering input into an AI machine about your personal journey, do you feel that is also creating on top of you new memories in a way, like the product that is created through this collaboration? Is it something that you feel will also enter and blur your own construction of the self in this journey of nourishing a machine towards a different constructed reality?
Yeah, no, definitely. I do think that there are times where I like there's an entry here about talking to my mom when I was texting her. And I sometimes think of the AI image instead of the actual place and the things that she said to me because I spent a lot of time trying to edit that down. So when I think about that, I think of the AI image. And then I would also strangely use ChatGPT to see if what I was saying made sense, and it would help me sometimes edit, and it would like take a turn, so I would have to reel it back in. So I think there's definitely something like a riskiness of like, again, like memory being so slippery that AI can take it to another level. But then it's interesting too because memory is already slippery, and I remember things wrong all the time, or like I wrote in here, like I do a lot of journal entries and I'll read some from like years ago and it's a completely different person. And now I feel like there's something really interesting there. AI does change the way that I'm remembering things even now because I focus so much on it. Um, so I do think that it did warp my memory a little bit, or it's definitely influencing it. Yeah. Did that answer that question? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question. When you put in an image and like your diary entry inside of the AI and it gives you an image, is that image like for you automatically like becomes one of your works, or do you ever like go back and tweak, like change something that you've put in because you felt like the image it gave you was not right?
So yeah, I try to stick mostly to whatever instant result it gave me because that felt the most like almost like an impulsive thing to do. Um, but there was like the journal entry with my mom and texting her. I went through like a lot of rounds with that one. And the reason for it was because it was giving me a lot of similar images of the photograph. And I didn't feel like it was different enough. And I actually tried to manipulate that one a little bit more because the text was about ICE, the agency, and it interpreted as like actual ICE. And I found that so interesting. So I wanted to um, push it to think about like that as literal ice, but I couldn't get it to do that because sometimes it'll resist things. Or there was other points where a lot of like the journal entries that I have are a little bit more politically charged that it just wouldn't run it. It would just be like an AI moderator saying like this is like against the guidelines. We can't have political things like this. So then I would try to like find workarounds it. So sometimes I would go different rounds as opposed to just like the first one that
It didn't
would come.
allow you to?
It didn't allow me to.
Oh, so people don't spread misinformation, so it's good. Like people doing deep fakes or something like that, no?
You could do, there's ways around it. I think Midjourney is a little bit more specific and restrictive. Like if you're doing something with like a famous figure, like say Trump, if it's like satire or it thinks it's satire, you can do it. But if they think it's like more harmful, I don't know what their guidelines of like harmful is or like what the definition is, it just won't let you. So I would talk about like immigration, or I think I also had a line somewhere in here where I was like, how fucking dare they? And it didn't like that I said that. So it would block it. So it's, I'm not exactly sure where their boundaries are.
Sorry. No, I have a question to you. I mean, art has always been like a very strong response, you're saying, as you chose it as well, to political movements. Do you think AI, especially with all the terms and conditions and the fact that it's maybe less of like a unison thing and it's more a relation between a man and a machine doing a creative process, do you think it enhances like the role of art in the political movement, or do you think maybe it will reduce it?
That's a good question. I think like in some ways it could reduce it depending on what tool you're using and what their ethics are. Um, I feel like if you want to make more political art, a lot of AI companies try to stray away from that, so they'll limit it. But so my other artwork that I've done before is about immigrant women in the desert. So I've actually found it really fun to break and go around the rules, or like figure out ways to like make it think I'm not talking politically and still have it produce an image for me. So I think there's still ways. The one thing I do like about AI a lot is that it's really accessible.